Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome back to another week. I hope you had a great weekend and you're super excited about everything coming up this week. What we're going to be talking about this week is celebrating our differences. We're going to dive in to the fact that what makes us different makes us great. And the reason why I think this is such an important topic is because too often our differences cause conflict, when I think our differences bring about our greatness. So I'm going to talk about why that's so important and one of the relationships in my life that makes the biggest difference, and we could not be more different, but those differences have brought out our greatness. I'm going to share that story with you today. So welcome back to the aha moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Now look, I grew up in a poor environment. I grew up in the inner city area, and then some time in the suburbs, a place called Franklin, Massachusetts, but I grew up Black, underprivileged, like all of the things. And one of my very best friends on the planet, you see me teaching with him all the time. He's my business associate, like all of the things. His name is Dr. Adam Frower. And he grew up affluent. He is white. Literally, if you saw the two of us standing next to each other, we couldn't be more opposite. And when we were introduced to one another, I remember looking at him like, you're just so different from me. You're just night and day, literally night and day. But somehow, and I got to be honest, it wasn't even on purpose, but somehow we just use our differences to bring out the best in the other person. And it has literally brought about measurable things and immeasurable things. Like, because of this partnership, we have reached business success and professional status in a way that we would have never achieved individually. Really remarkably, like, our business soars. It's the largest training business in our entire field. We publish books. We travel the world teaching together. And you can measure those things, like how much money we have and how many books we have and how many followers we have and all those things. But then in unmeasurable ways too, like what's it like to have your best friend all the time and become really close with each other's families and be really connected and always feel like there's somebody in your corner. Can't measure those things, but it enriches my life even more than money. It enriches my life even more than stuff. It enriches my life significantly, and you can't even measure that. But all because we have found a way to use our differences as strengths. You know, there are areas of Adam's life where he's not strong. There are attributes that he does not have. There are flaws that he does have. And I use my strengths to make up the difference for his flaws. There are areas of my life where I am not strong, and there are flaws that I have, and Adam uses his strengths to make up the differences for those things in my life. And we sometimes openly talk about, I wonder if the world knows that people so differently can collaborate in the way that we do. I wonder if the world knows that people so different as you and I can come together and truly, genuinely create happiness, joy, and greatness that ripples out. My family's life is better because Adam is in it. Adam is a part of my family. Adam's children refer to me as Uncle Elliott, and their lives are better because I am in it. I'm part of their family. And we watch all the time how people don't get along because they have different political views, different skin tones, different sexual orientations, different religious views. It's crazy to us. What makes us different makes us great. What makes us different are the things that we should be drawn upon to pull out each other's greatness. We shouldn't spend our time arguing and fighting about those differences. We should spend our time respecting and enjoying and truly appreciating what makes us different. Because if it wasn't for those things, that we would not be great. In order to be great, you have to surround yourself with people who are different. Those are the people that make things happen in your life. If you were just surrounded by people who were like you, talk like you, act like you, believed what you believed, you would never grow. You have to be around people who are different because we only grow through challenge. We only grow when we learn that my way is not the only way. We only grow when we learn there are other ways to do things. But in order to put ourselves in those circumstances, you have to challenge yourself. And you have to accept that I got to put myself around people who are different from me. And that challenge in and of itself is life-changing. I know that firsthand because it's changed my life. I know that firsthand because I've watched it change Adam's life. I watched it change his family's life. And I know it can change yours too. So I want you to look around your life and just look for opportunities to connect with people who are different from you in all of the ways, in any of the ways, and watch what it does to your life. Thank you so much for being here today. I love you so much for listening. Please, please, please help me spread the word by sharing this podcast on your social media platforms or with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe. You can do that wherever it is you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, Google. And don't forget, you can also become a Patreon subscriber and get access to bonus episodes and transcriptions of each and every episode. Thank you again for being here. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Perhaps the most important factor in learning to celebrate our differences is learning to be empathetic to other people's experiences, learning to appreciate other people's experiences, learning to value other people's experiences. It's something that I actually don't think we as a culture, as a community, as a people are very good at. And I'm going to admit, I was not very good at it at one point in my life. I'm going to talk about how I learned to recognize other people have experiences and may not be similar to mine, and that's an important piece of growth. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. I'm your host, Elliott Connie, and I'm going to share a story with you that highlights like an embarrassing part of my personality as a young person. But I think it's important because I want you guys out there to understand how growth happens. So I grew up in a very homogenous community, and I would say in two homogenous communities that kind of flipped. So on the inner city Chicago, and then I moved to Boston, and then we moved to suburban Massachusetts. And I didn't really have any exposure to homosexuality. It wasn't something in the 90s that people were out and talking about, and people would judge it, and they would use derogatory terms, and it was just something that wasn't talked about or accepted around me. I wouldn't describe myself as having any hate or unlike for people who were living a same-sex lifestyle. It was just not something that was talked about, and when it was talked about, it was talked about in derogatory ways. And when I went to college, I went to University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. I moved into the dorm, and I lived in a suite that was 10 dorm rooms, and we shared a common area, and there were like 12 or 14 guys that lived in that space. So it was an absolute mess. And one of the things we had to do was twice a month, we had to clean it. And we had to go to the resident assistant, the RA, that was kind of like the dorm captain. They were the ones that would get us in trouble and write us up if they caught us breaking rules. We had to go to the RA and get a vacuum when we were going to clean. And this RA, his name was Tom. I'll never forget him. He taught me one of the most important lessons of my life. Tom was gay. And I knew Tom was gay. We all knew Tom was gay. Tom was one of the first people that lived an out-of-the-closet life that I ever knew. I went to college at 17 years old, and that was my first time meeting someone that was living an out-of-the-closet lifestyle. Didn't think much about it. I remember not thinking much about it. But I remember one day I go up to get the vacuum from Tom, and I knock on his door. He invites me in his room, and I look on his walls, and there are like male model pictures, shirtless, just like a adolescent male would. I mean, Tom was probably in his early 20s at the time, all over his wall. And I could tell that something was bothering Tom. I walk in and he said, "Hey man, can I talk to you for a minute?" And I said, "Sure." And he tells me that he caught his boyfriend cheating. And he just starts crying. And I sat down on the floor of his dorm room, and he sat on the floor, and we sat there for hours talking about how much it hurt and what he was going through and what was bothering him. And I remember thinking, this is just like when my straight friends are having relationship problems. And I remember walking out of the room thinking, like, we're all just people trying to live life and be happy. And we let the differences distract us. Like, does it really matter that Tom had his heart broken by a guy versus a woman? No, it didn't matter to me. Only thing that mattered was, like, Tom was just hurting. And he was hurting in the exact same ways that my straight friends would be hurting if they discovered that their partner was talking to or kissing another guy or whatever the case may be. And we have to learn to remember that, like, we're all just people. We're all just people trying to live life and be happy and have joy and be successful and make friends and smile and laugh. The differences are actually not the relevant part. It's the similarities. I walked out of Tom's room. I walked out carrying the vacuum. I remember thinking, like, holy cow, we're all just people. I remember thinking, like, holy cow, we're all just trying to deal. And we get distracted by ethnicity. We get distracted by race, gender, sexuality. We get distracted by all of these things that are different. But I think the things that are most important are the things that are the same. Because once you recognize we're all the same, then you become able to celebrate the differences. Because it's the differences that make us who we are. It's the differences that make us what we are. It's the differences that give life meaning, purpose, and value. And I'm 45 years old now. I haven't seen Tom in almost 30 years. I haven't seen Tom in forever. That incident happened in the fall of 1994. But if Tom walked in here right now, or if Tom is out there somewhere listening to the podcast, and the buildings on campus back then were color-coded, so if your name is Tom and you were an RA in 1994 in the green building, just know that you touched someone's life and helped them learn a very valuable lesson that they carry with them to this day. And I want you guys to learn from this lesson as well. I want to challenge you, because these are the ways that we prevent racism and discrimination. These are the ways we fight against hate, is by appreciating we're all the same. And that's what makes our differences valuable. I love you for listening. Thanks for being here. Please share this podcast on your social media platform to help me reach as many people as possible, even if you just share it with one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, Simplecast, Spotify, Google, and you can even become a Patreon subscriber where there are bonus episodes and transcriptions of each and every episode. Thank you for being here. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Today I'm going to talk about one of the most important aspects of developing a relationship with someone who is different from you. I'm going to talk about what it takes to make this work and why it is so important in our lives, in our society, in our world. And I'm going to use a personal experience to do it. So welcome back to the aha moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast or following me on social media or in this field or anything for any period of time, you know that I'm very good friends with a guy named Adam Frower. And you also know that Adam Frower and I could not be more different if you just looked at the surface. He's white, I'm black. I grew up urban, he grew up suburban. He grew up affluent, I did not. There's almost nothing that would let you know that Adam Frower and I would become best friends. Literally almost nothing. But we have developed an inseparable bond, going through difficult things together, through our passion for the kind of work that we do, and through genuine love, respect, and appreciation. Over time, I've developed the ability to really love and care about Adam, and he's developed the ability to really love and care about me, and to look at me with a level of empathy. You know, I don't do things the way Adam would do things. I don't communicate the way Adam communicates. I don't stand up for myself the way Adam stands up for himself. I mean, we both stand up for ourselves, but we do it differently. But Adam said something today that I thought was so powerful. See, something happened today where someone reached out to Adam and asked him, are there any limits to your loyalty to Elliott? Which is a ridiculously offensive question. And over the course of time, Adam and I had our friendship tested. Not by us. I've never had a moment where I questioned my relationship with Adam, and vice versa. I'm sure he's never had a moment where he's questioned his relationship with me. But there have been many moments where we could tell there were people around us trying to pull us apart. We can tell there were people in our worlds trying to separate us or cause a divide. And that happened today. Someone asked Adam today, there's a situation going on in our field where I believe I was discriminated against. I am very tired of dealing with that situation. I've talked to this person multiple times, so decided to make a video about what happened. Adam would not have made a video about it. It has understandably upset some people in the field. And one of these people had a conversation with Adam and asked him, is there any limitations to his loyalty to Elliott? It made me think. Adam's response was appropriate, just as a best friend would. And he said, I don't feel like my loyalty has been tested. And he explained why to this person, whatever. But, you have to fight for these relationships when people want to make the differences between the two of you become problems. But amongst Adam and I, they have never been problems. In fact, they're the very reason why we are as successful as we are in our profession, in our work, but it's also the very reason why it enriches our lives. Truly, the things that make us different make us great. Adam and I say that all of the time. The things that make us different make us great. Adam pulls the absolute best out of me, and I pull the absolute best out of him. But yet there are always these forces trying to test us and trying to pull us apart and trying to drive a wedge through us. And in order to make these relationships work, you have to fight for them. You truly have to be resolute in your love and devotion to the person that you care about. And you have to have a commitment to appreciating difference. I truly wish we could do a better job in this world of appreciating difference, because I want everyone to experience the richness that I experience in this relationship with Adam. There truly is a bond between the two of us that I have an extraordinarily difficult time explaining. The only thing I can do is to keep talking about it to let you guys know it's possible to come from completely different areas and have the world try to pull you apart, but it never even makes a dent. You have to fight for it. And you have to hold on to the perspective that what makes us different makes us great, because we pull the best out of one another. One of the greatest honors and privileges in my life is that I get to walk through this life with Adam. I get to celebrate Adam. Adam gets to be a part of my family, and I get to be a part of his. His children call me Uncle Elliott. My mother asks about him every time we talk. It's because we're different that the magic has happened. It wouldn't be this way if we were the same. And we get so caught up in differences. In fact, people get so caught up in differences, they try to use those differences to drive a wedge between us, and I don't understand it. It will not work. Like, I'm just going to say it out loud. It will not work. I love that man too much, and he loves me too much. So instead of asking people to stop, what I actually want you to do is, instead of looking at the differences and have them be things that trigger you to be uncomfortable and want to change it, how about you look at the beauty? How about you look at your life and see the differences around you that could be used to bring out your very best? That's my call to action today. Spend more time looking at the beauty that arises when we are different, instead of being triggered by it. That's the lesson here. I hope everybody learned solution-focused brief therapy from me, and I hope everybody gets inspired. But more than anything else, if this can be my legacy, I left a mark on this world that showed people differences can lead to greatness, then that's all that matters to me. Thanks for listening, guys. I love you so much. Please help me spread this message. It means so much to me if you would. Share this podcast on your social media platforms, or with even one person that you think would benefit from hearing what I've had to say. And don't forget to become a subscriber. You can do that on Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, Google, wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts. And you can even become a Patreon subscriber, where we have extra episodes and transcriptions from each and every episode. Thanks so much. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. As I think about diversity and differences and representation, I was thinking about where in pop culture and where in movies or TV is there an example of two people that come from incredibly different backgrounds but yet created something very special. And there are lots of examples of it, but my brain went back to the very first movie that I saw that depicted this. And I remember the way it made me feel as a very, very young child. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So welcome back to the aha moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Now, the movie I'm talking about is a movie called Brian's Song. Now, Brian's Song, it's a sports movie. It was filmed in the 70s, and it's about a guy named Gale Sayers. Gale Sayers was a running back for the Chicago Bears. He didn't play very long, but he was special. He was very, very special, and he got hurt, so his career was cut short. I think he only played in the NFL for 6 years, but in those 6 years, he became a Hall of Famer, and those of you who know football know that's a pretty remarkable feat. But what the movie is about, it's about a friendship that Gale Sayers made with a guy named Brian Piccolo, who was also a Chicago Bears player who was diagnosed with cancer. Brian Piccolo was a white person, Gale Sayers was a black person. They come from completely different backgrounds, but they forged this incredible friendship and bonded through Brian Piccolo's cancer diagnosis and treatment, and ultimately his death. Now, I remember being a young kid at the time. Like, I'm from Chicago, I was born in Chicago. I'm actually from Massachusetts. I was raised in Massachusetts, but I was born in Chicago. And I remember being really, really young when I saw this movie, and embarrassingly, I thought it was weird. I didn't know that white people and black people could be friends. Up until that point, my entire life was a very black world. I was, 5 maybe. 6. I was young. And I knew I liked football. Like, I was the kind of kid that would run around in the backyard playing football, holding football, playing with my younger brother mostly. My older brother was too cool to hang out with his younger brothers, so he was always off doing his own thing. So me and my younger brother played around a lot in the backyard, throwing the football back and forth and those things. So I watched the movie as a young child just because I would have done anything that had to do with football. But this movie was so much less about football and so much more about friendship. And I remember thinking how weird it was that a white guy and a black guy could be friends. I literally didn't know that. I mean, how foolish and ridiculous and embarrassing is that? But I didn't know. Not only in the movie were they friends, but they were incredibly close. And they were together through a very difficult part of Brian's life as he's dealing with cancer. And that movie changed me. Because forever I got to realize that people from different cultures, ethnicities, and backgrounds can be friends, can be close. You don't have to be from the same neighborhood to be friends. You don't have to be from the same background and the same culture to be friends. And you can actually have a beautiful, magical experience through that. You can actually bond with someone that looks different from you. And that might sound like, obvious, but it wasn't at the time. And in a weird way, I think that we need that lesson now. Facebook has created, or social media in general has created like silos. I can actually have all friends that have the same political views as me. I can participate in all Facebook groups that are about the things that I'm interested in. So I never really get to acknowledge in a world that's different from mine. And I think we're beginning to forget the lesson that I learned when I was just a young person, that you can be close and bonded with someone that is very different from you. Such an important lesson. We needed it in the 1970s because there was so much racial turmoil going on, and there was no internet to bring us closer together, so we just lived in our neighborhood silos as we were born into. And interestingly, as we go through the next 40 years and we invent the internet and social media, we're now right back to that same place where we can use social media to create filters in our world so that we only interact with people who agree with us. We can pick news channels that will only inform us with things that we already agree with. We can live in a world where we forget how important it is to truly bond with people that goes beyond the surface, but truly bond with people in their hearts. And once you get to the heart level, it doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like, what gender you are, what religion you are, what sexual orientation you are, what color is your skin, what ethnicity. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is what's in your heart. And once you can get there, then you truly, truly can bond. So I want you to think about, what movies have you seen, what TV shows have you seen where two people that are completely different from one another created a bond, created a friendship, created something magical, and how did it change the world? I think the world got changed in the 1970s when Brian's song came out, and I hope if we continue to share messages like this, we will continue to change the world. And I need your help to do that, so please share this podcast on your social media platforms or with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. You can do that wherever it is you enjoy listening, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, Google, wherever it is. You can also become a Patreon subscriber and get bonus episodes and also transcriptions from each and every episode. I love you so much for being here. I'll see you tomorrow. Happy Friday out there, everyone. And, it's the end of the week, and we're going to wrap up our conversation about the things that make us different being the things that we should celebrate, being the things that make us great. And I'm going to talk today about how the things that make us different make us rich. The things about us that are different increase the richness of our lives. That's what I'm going to talk about today, because I want to make sure that you have a rich life. And of course, I'm not talking about just financially, but I definitely want to make sure you have a rich life. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie, and I want to talk to you about richness. Now, the easiest thing in the world is to stay in your comfort zone and to do the things you've always done. But when you expand that and you do different things, life gets rich. And I'll give you a silly example, and then I'm going to give you a more profound example that I hope will impact you and be something that you carry with you as a little bit of a lesson going forward. So the simple example is, When I was a kid, me and my friends, we would get like a paper. When I say kid, I mean like in my teens, mid-teens. We would save up money. We would get paper out and we would save up money and we'd go to a local restaurant called Applebee's, which was a huge treat for a 15, 16-year-old kid like making his own money for the first time in his life. And every single time I went to Applebee's, I ordered chicken strips and French fries with honey mustard. Every single time. And over the course of time, I decided that I wanted to eat better. I wanted to eat more healthy. I wanted to do different things. So one day I went to Applebee's and I ordered like a salmon. I'd never had salmon before, and it came with like rice and vegetables. And I remember eating it thinking like, this is delicious. And I never would have thought about it had I not done something different, right? Because you have to be different. You have to celebrate difference if you want to enjoy life and have a rich lived experience. So what's happening in my life now is I am not an outdoor person at all. And I've recently taken up the hobby of archery. And the way that that happened is after a year of being in my house in COVID. You guys remember in 2020, a lot of us, including me, didn't leave our homes at all. And I didn't leave my house at all. And one day I was sitting in my office. It was November 20th. I was sitting in my home office. And I was like, I gotta get the heck out of this house. And somehow I drove to Bass Pro Shop. And I've always kind of been interested in archery. Like as a kid, I enjoyed the movie Rambo and his bow and arrow and Robin Hood and his bow and arrow. Like I just enjoyed those things. So I go to this store and I buy a bow and arrow. Not even knowing what I would do. I set up a little target in my backyard and just started playing with it. Well, interestingly, I have an uncle that was like literally my hero, my idol. I loved and looked up to him. He passed away a few years ago. And his son, shortly after I took up archery, came to Texas from Arkansas where he lives, his name is Haston, to hang out. And I said to him, I said, hey, Haston, have you ever done archery before? And he said, no. And I said, hey, let's go to the shooting range. We go to the shooting range. He loved it. I bought him a bow and some arrows for his birthday. He loved it. And now twice a year we get together and we do archery events. Now, we've never been hunting. We don't shoot anything alive or anything like that. But we go to these archery events where you shoot targets. And it's such a great bonding thing that we do. And it has reconnected me to the part of my life that I love the most, which is associated to his dad, my uncle, my idol. All because I was willing to do something different. All because I was willing to step out and do something that I would never have done before. And Haston is completely different from me. He's a mechanic. I'm a psychotherapist. He works with his hands. I would never work with my hands. He is very country and I'm very city. But this is the thing we bond over because we're willing to enjoy and celebrate each other's differences and do things that neither one of us, or certainly me, would have ever imagined that I would do. And then here we are. This is the thing we bond over twice a year. We go and we have fun for a weekend, celebrating our differences, doing this activity that we've bonded over. And it's magical. It's absolutely magical. And I want you guys to experience that. I want you to do something that you never could have imagined yourself doing with someone that you never could have imagined yourself doing it with. I want you to see that life is richer when you sample other things. I think the number one thing that holds people back is we're afraid if we try something new and we don't like it, we just wasted a weekend. You know what? Risk wasting a weekend, because if you try something new and it is something that really taps into you, then life gets richer, and that's what this is about. So that's what I want you to do. I want you to go experiment, go play, go do something you couldn't imagine yourself doing with someone that you couldn't imagine yourself doing it with. And I promise your life will be richer. I love y'all, man, for real. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please share this podcast on your social media platforms or with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe. You can do that on Apple, Spotify, Simplecast, wherever it is you enjoy listening to your podcasts. And you can also become a Patreon subscriber where you're going to get bonus episodes this weekend and every episode transcribed. So you get some bonuses when you're a Patreon subscriber. And thank you for being here. I can't wait to see you on Monday. Love y'all.